Many people do not understand why individuals become addicted to drugs or how drugs change the brain to foster compulsive drug abusers. They mistakenly view drug abusers and addiction as strictly a social problem, and many characterize those who take drugs as morally weak. One very common belief is that drug abusers should be able to just stop taking drugs if they are only willing to change their behaviors. What people often underestimate is the complexity of drug addiction. That is a disease that impacts the brain, and because of that, stopping drugs abuse is not simply a matter of willpower. Those scientific advances, we now know much more about how exactly drugs work in the brain, and we also know that drug addictions can be successfully treated to help people stop abusing drugs and resume their productive lives. Drug abuse and addiction are major burdens to society. Estimates of overall cost of substance abuses in the United States include health and crime-related costs as well as losses in productivity exceed $500 billion annually. This includes approximately $181 billion of illicit drugs, $168 billion for tobacco, $185 billion for alcohol. As overwhelming as these numbers are, however, they do not fully describe the hurt in public health, safety, implications, which include loss of employment, failure in school, domestic violence, child abuse, and other crimes. Drug addiction is a chronic, often relapsing brain disease that causes compulsive drug seeking and uses despite harmful consequences to the individual who is addicted and to those around them. Drug addiction is a brain disease because the abuser of the drugs leads to change in the structure and function of the brain. Although it is true that for most people, the initial decision to take drugs is voluntarily, over time, the changes in the brain caused by repeated drug abuse can afflict a person's self-control and ability to make sound decisions, and at the same time, it sends intense cautions to take drugs. It is because of these changes in the brain that it is so challenging for a person who is addicted to stop abusing drugs. Fortunately, there are treatments that help people to counteract addiction's powerful disruptive effects and regain control. Research shows that combining addiction treatment medications, if available, with behavioral therapy is the best way to ensure success for most patients. Treatment approaches that are to each patient's drug abuse patterns and any co-occurring medical, psychiatric, and social problems can lead to substance recoveries and a life without drug abuse. I picked drug abuse as my topic because it is a major thing in the world today. There's a lot of deaths, and it's really expensive for some people, and it shows how people this. I picked the song because it shows how drug abuse can affect people and how some people can overcome it, and and then the song is Under the Bridge by Red Hot Chili Peppers, and he states how he feels like he doesn't have a partner. It's because when he's on drugs, it feels like he's all alone, and that's why he takes drugs, because he feels like he's left out from everything and he doesn't have anybody to be there with him. And then he states the City of Angels is his town. It refers to Los Angeles is where he grew up, and it's pretty much his hometown. And states in the chorus, I don't ever want to feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love, take me all the way. It's saying how when he's on drugs, it feels like he's actually has friends, and then he's in a good state of mind, and then sometimes it's like he doesn't want to be there though, because it's hard to believe that nobody is out there. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. At least I have her love in the city. She loves me, lonely as I am. Together we cry. And he talks about Los Angeles, and he's hiking through the Hollywood Hills, and he says, maybe the spirit of the hills of the city who had me in her sights and was looking after me. The line, sometimes I feel like my only friend is the city I live in, the city of angels, and then I am together we Cry shows a direct lead to the lead singer Anthony, isolation and sense of susceptibility. Despite these emotions, Anthony believes his life was better without drug addiction. No matter how sad or lonely I got, things were a million % better than they were 2 years earlier when I was using drugs at the time, he says. There was no comparison. The optimistic ideal gave birth to the chorus of the song, I don't ever want to feel like I did that day, taking the place I love. The place he loves being his fellow bandmates, friends, and family. One of the most notable verses in the song discusses the harsh effects of drugs, their results in destroying many of Anthony's past relationships and impacts on his happiness. Based on one of Anthony's experience, the verses of Under the Bridge illustrates his efforts to entering a gang territory under a bridge to purchase drugs. Anthony was forced to pretend that a sister of one of the gang members was his fiancée to be permitted inside. Although he successfully acquired the drugs, Anthony considered this moment to be one of the worst moments of his life as it is. Demonstrated the level to which he was willing to sink in order to feed his addiction. Because of this, the singer refuses to acknowledge the location of the bridge, though he notes it as in downtown Los Angeles area.
Question.